Hi, my name is James Ponti. Welcome to First Chapter Friday. I am the author of the Dead City books, the Framed books, and the City Spies books, and I'd like to talk to you and read to you a little bit from City Spies 3 Forbidden City. It's my newest book. For those who aren't familiar with the series, it's about 5 kids from around the world. Each one has fallen through the cracks of their respective cultures, and they are all adopted by a British secret agent, a man codenamed Mother, who raises them as a family of spies. MI6 sends them on missions where adults would stand out, but kids can blend in. In the first one, they went to Paris. In the second one, they went to San Francisco. In the newest book, in this book, they go to Moscow and Beijing, which is why it's called Forbidden City. But it starts off in London, and I'm going to read to you from the first chapter. It's titled Billionaire's Row. It was dark, and as Paris looked out at the traffic, he caught a glimpse of his own reflection in a window. There was nothing remarkable about his face. No feature or quirk someone would notice or remember. He'd been born in Rwanda, grew up in Paris, and lived in Scotland, and now he was in London. And in each of those locations, he'd learned to blend in and disappear. This was an important quality, because Paris wasn't just a schoolboy. He was also a spy. Blending in was essential. Unlike spies in movies, whose modes of transportation range from jetpacks and mini-submarines to bulletproof Aston Martins tricked out with rocket launchers, he was headed to his latest mission on a city bus, the number 70 to South Kensington to be precise. That was the problem with being undercover and underage. You always needed somebody else to give you a ride. This is pathetic, he said to Kat, who was sitting right next to him. Absolutely pathetic. What is, she asked. He looked around to make sure no one was listening and then leaned in to whisper. We're about to break into one of the most expensive homes in London to steal a priceless work of art, and our getaway car is a bright red double-decker bus that does a max speed of 5 miles an hour. Kat laughed, which only frustrated him more. First of all, we're not stealing it. We're returning it, she answered in equally hushed tones. Or have you forgotten about the little treasure that's been sewn into the lining of your jacket? Secondly, once you've put it back, why would anyone bother to chase us? Logic dictates that our getaway vehicle is irrelevant. He nodded reluctantly and admitted, Okay, you may have a point there. Of course I do, she replied. Your problem is that you think being a spy is like being in an action movie. It's not? No. It's like eating lunch in the lunch hall. It's like eating in the lunch hall at school. How do you figure that? You pretend you belong and hope nobody notices you while you figure things out. Not to mention, there's a decent chance that the food's been poisoned. He chuckled and saw that they were nearing their stop at Notting Hill Gate. Finally, this is us. He stood up to leave, but she stayed put, blocking his way. I'm not leaving until you say it, she said firmly. Paris was the alpha, which meant he was in charge now that they were in the field. It also meant he was the one who was supposed to say the phrase that officially started the mission. It was as much a good luck ritual as it was an operational command. Here, he replied, on the bus. Don't knock the bus, she said. James Bond was named after one just like this. What do you mean? When Ian Fleming was writing the first Bond book, he lived out in Kent and had to ride the bus back and forth to London, she explained. And, he replied, not getting the connection. The bus from Kent to Victoria was number 007. You're joking, he said. No, that's where he got the name. And if it's good enough for Ian and James, it's good enough for you and me. Well, if you put it that way, he flashed a sly smile and said, This operation is hot. We are a go. Paris and Kat were part of the City Spies, an experimental team of 5 undercover agents aged 12 to 15 who MI6 used when they had a mission in which adults would stand out. In this instance, they were about to crash the Sweet 16 party of a London socialite named Tabitha Banks. The Secret Intelligence Service wasn't really interested in the birthday girl, but they were fascinated by her father. Reginald Banks was a multi-billionaire whose business dealings sometimes involved nefarious underworld characters and shadowy figures from foreign intelligence agencies. MI6 desperately needed to get an agent into his house, and this party offered a rare opportunity to access the highly secure mansion located on Kensington Palace Gardens, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the world. Testing comms, 1, 2, 3, Paris said as they walked away from the bus stop. Can you hear me? He was using a covert communication device that looked like an everyday earbud to speak to team members monitoring the situation from a nearby safe house. Roger that, we hear you loud and clear, replied Mother, the MI6 agent in charge of the team. How about me? Asked Kat, testing her device. Perfect, Mother replied. We are ready to rock and roll. We've got Brooklyn on the computer, and Sydney is... There was a pause as Mother turned to Sydney. What exactly are you doing? She gave him a look as if the answer was obvious. I'm standing by, just in case, she replied. We have Sydney standing by, just in case, Mother continued. Although technically, she's pacing more than standing. Relax, Sid, Paris said confidently. We've got this. She's not pacing because she's worried about the mission, Brooklyn pointed out. She's pacing because she's jealous that she's not the one doing it. This brought a round of laughs, and Sydney didn't even bother to disagree. She always wanted to be the alpha and hated it when she missed out on the action. Just remember that I'm here if you need me, she offered, ready and willing. Good to know, said Paris. We've almost reached the guard gate at the end of the street, Kat said. Any last words of wisdom? Yes, answered Mother, who cleared his throat and paused dramatically before saying, This mission is fraught, so don't get caught. He liked using rhyming couplets nicknamed Motherisms to remind the team of important elements of spycraft. This one left Kat and Paris completely uninspired. Seriously, Kat replied. Is that the best you've got? Asked Paris. Well, I could have pointed out that if you get caught, it will not only involve the Metropolitan Police, but quite likely the Prime Minister, the head of MI6, the Foreign Secretary, the French Ambassador, and the President of Nepal, said Mother. But I didn't want to overwhelm you, and it's exceedingly difficult to make all of that rhyme. Fair points all, said Paris. Oh, there is one more thing, Paris, interjected Brooklyn. What's that? He replied. Try to remember that your microphone is very sensitive. Okay, but why am I remembering that? Because it will blow out our headsets if you squeal too loudly when KB5 take the stage, she said, eliciting more laughter. You are so very funny, Paris replied. Trust me, if I scream, it will be because I am in musical agony. Although calling what they do music is an offense to everyone from Beethoven to the Beatles. KB5 was a British boy band whose heartthrob members had their pictures plastered on bedroom walls across the globe. Despite Paris's opinion of their musical ability, they regularly performed in sold-out arenas, bursting with screaming fans. Tonight, however, they were playing a private concert for Tabitha's birthday. This was the advantage of having Reginald Banks for a father. Not only was he one of the richest people in the United Kingdom, but he also created KB5 and owned the record label that produced their albums. I like their music, Sydney offered. It's not too late if you want to swap roles. I would gladly do so, said Paris, if only Australia had built their embassy on Kensington Palace Gardens. Nicknamed Billionaires Row, Kensington Palace Gardens was home to business tycoons, royal family members, foreign embassies, and the residences of several ambassadors. It was a half-mile long and protected at both ends by guard gates with armed police officers. For any outsiders who still didn't get the hint, there were even signs that read, No photography. Sir Reg, as he was known in the tabloids, couldn't just hold a concert in his backyard without the approval of his very powerful and extremely private neighbors. So he'd come up with a brilliant solution and opened up the celebration to all young people who lived on the street. Since no parent wanted to face the wrath of a furious teen or tween who'd missed out on the party of the decade, permission was granted. Invitations were also extended to the children of embassy workers, which is when MI6 saw an opportunity. As good fortune would have it, Kensington Palace Gardens was home to the ambassador of France and the embassy of Nepal, Paris and Kat's home countries. Some favors were called in, and 2 names were added to the guest list. For Paris, this meant swapping identities yet again, something he'd done countless times during his 5 years with MI6. As he approached the guardhouse, he flipped a mental switch and became someone else, like an actor stepping onto a stage in a West End play. Until the curtain fell on this little drama, he'd be Antoine Tremblay, the 15-year-old son of the Second Secretary of Cultural Affairs. Which embassy? Asked the guard. France, replied Paris. The guard motioned him into a row of tables marked with flags representing the different countries. Here the young guests were screened to make sure no overzealous KB5 fans were able to sneak into the party. Paris went to the table with a French tricolor and smiled at the man dressed in a sharp black suit. Invitation and identification, said the man. Paris handed him a pair of flawless forgeries. An official-looking invitation to the party, complete with a security hologram, and a French diplomatic ID for Antoine Tremblay. Bonsoir, Antoine, said the man, slipping into French to test him. Ça va? Oui, ça va bien, Paris replied naturally. Here's my dog, joining in the plot. The guard checked his name off a list on a clipboard. Comment vous aimez Ibisson? Asked in my French. I apologize, I can't speak French. Asked the guard to see if he was excited about seeing KB5. One of the keys to being undercover was not lying when it wasn't necessary. The more honest you were about specific things, the more believable you were overall. So rather than pretending to be excited about a boy band he detested, Paris answered truthfully. Disons, j'aime beaucoup mieux. Again, sorry about my French. Le gâteau d'anniversaire. I'm more excited about the birthday cake. The man laughed and handed him a red wristband. Put this on now and don't take it off until you leave for the night. Merci beaucoup, replied Paris. At a nearby table, Kat answered similar questions in a mix of Nepali and English. Unlike the other kids who eagerly hurried toward the party, Paris and Kat took their time as they walked down the street. They'd been trained to study the landscape surrounding any mission and made mental notes of key details like the locations of security cameras and the fact that one of the streetlights was out. They looked for escape routes and potential hiding places. They also marveled at the mansions. Wow, Paris said when they reached the one belonging to Sir Reg. It looks even bigger than I imagined. The pictures don't do it justice. No kidding, said Kat. You're going to need GPS just to find your way around in there. The two of them had studied everything they could about the house, including photographs, blueprints, and video from a BBC show about London's finest estates. The building was 3 stories tall with a showcase of Italian Renaissance architecture, with 38 rooms, including an indoor swimming pool, home cinema, and gymnasium. It was also home to museum-quality art. There was a large Picasso that hung in the entryway, a pair of Van Gogh sketches in the living room, a Rodin statue in the garden, and an ornate Fabergé egg known as the Pearl of Russia that sat on the mantel above the fireplace in Sir Reg's office. Or at least that's what he thought. In reality, it was a high-quality fake that contained a tiny hidden microphone British intelligence had used to eavesdrop on his business meetings for nearly 3 years. The actual Fabergé egg, worth nearly £5 million, was currently nestled inside a secret pocket sewn into Paris's jacket. The Pearl of Russia was one of 52 jeweled eggs handcrafted over a period of 3 decades for Tsars Alexander III and Nicholas II. Each year they'd given them as Easter presents to their wives and mothers. Paris's assignment was to sneak the real egg back into the office and replace it before the fake was exposed. This was necessary because Sir Reg had recently announced that he was loaning it to a museum in Moscow, where it would no doubt be examined by experts who would uncover the microphone. MI6 couldn't let that happen. We've arrived, Paris announced to the others in the safe house. How are the access points? Asked Mother. The walkway gate is manned by staff directing everyone to go around the house to the party and back, answered Paris. But the gate for the driveway is wide open. The tour bus and equipment trucks for KB5 have blocked it so it can't shut. What about the house? Asked Mother. 2 guards at each door, said Kat. Judging by the holster budges beneath their back jackets, I'd say they're all armed. If there was only 1 per door, you might be able to pull off a diversion and distract the guard long enough to slip in, said Mother. But with 2, the main floor is no-go. That means you'll need to enter the house through the alternate route. Paris and Kat both turned their attention to the roof. Looks like someone's going to be playing Santa Claus, said Kat. Paris gave her a raised eyebrow and replied, ho, ho, ho. So that is the first chapter of City Spies Forbidden City. I hope you like it. If you read the book, I hope you love the book and the adventure with the kids. It is such a great honor to get to write about them, and it is so nice to talk to you today. So happy reading, and have a great weekend.